Okay, so we're beginning the second Siman of Basar of Siman Peichas. Now, Siman Peichas and Peitas are very, very practical. They're not super challenging, Baruch Hashem. Maybe a shorter one today, but my plan is to do this Siman and to finish this Siman next week. So the Mechaber in Siman Peichas is dealing with the following halachas, and that is having milk and meat on the same table at the same time. That's the issue. It's very simple. The issue, by the way, is twofold. It's obviously an issue if you're alone. It's even an issue if you're eating with someone else. Meaning, if I'm alone at the table and I have fleishik and I have milchik at the table at the same time, that's a problem. The concern is, as we'll see in a moment, I might come to just quickly, I got fries from a milchik place, which is dairy. I got fries from a fleishik place. I'm doing a fry taste test. The problem is, I might accidentally eat from it. Obviously, when you're alone, it's a big concern. But even when you're eating with someone, so I'm eating fries and you're eating fries, that's also a problem. And we'll go through the details of when is it a problem with eating with someone, is there a way to fix it? So the Mechaber says in Siman Peiches Sif Aleph, Afilu Basar Chaya v'oif, even if it's meat, chicken, or chaya, Osir lahaloisai ala shulchan sha'echel of gvina. You're not allowed to eat at the same time on one table milk and meat. Because we're concerned that you'll come to accidentally eat it. But if it's not the table that you eat on, it's just the counter where you put the groceries down, that's fine. And even if you stand there and snack a little bit, that's not a concern. The problem is only the table that you eat by, not the counter. Okay. So if I have on the table a piece of chicken and I have a slice of pizza, that's a problem. I can't eat one without either covering the other, removing the other, doing something else to fix it. The concern being, I might come to accidentally eat the other item. Now, the Taz points out an interesting halacha. This is what we call a gzeira, right? It's a lest you, right? It's a derabanan. We're concerned lest you come to eat it together. Let's say I taka eat it together, right? I don't know if we've been taking the test, but the first couple questions were based on this. Let's say you come to eat it together. I have a cold piece of burger and a cold slice of pizza. Let's say I eat this and then I eat that. It's only an issa derabanan, right? It's only deraisa if they're cooked together. If they're not cooked together, it's an issa derabanan. So we're concerned that I might come to do an issa derabanan and they're making a gzeira that I'm not allowed to eat at the same table at the same time, milk and meat, lest I come to eat it together, even though if I eat it together, it's only a derabanan. So this is what's called a gzeira l'gzeira. This is a fence lest you come to do an issa derabanan, which is not generally done. So why is that? So the Taz is bothered by this question. The Taz writes in Sifkat and Aleph, even though if you were to taka make the mistake and eat it together, leka issa doraisa, there is no biblical prohibition, she'ein iser ladafka derech bishul yachad, because it's only deraisa if they're cooked together. By the way, chicken b'chalal is derabanan under all circumstances, but even beef and milk is only a problem if they're cooked together. So I'm not cooking it. So you're making a gzeira lest I come to eat it together. Even if I eat it together, it's an issa derabanan. So it's not such the end of the world. So why am I making a fence preventing me from doing an issa derabanan? Says the Taz, v'nim tzadav gzeira l'gzeira, b'gemara amrina debekai gavna gazrina gzeira l'gzeira. Says the Taz, this is the exception. We don't generally do this, but in this case we do. Now why do we do it in this case? He doesn't explain, but the Mefarshim explain. This is the phenomenon that you have with Basar b'chalav, is that because they're both permitted, there's no fear. The whole point is that I might come to eat it together. What makes it worse in this case is that there's no fear on my part. We'll see in a moment, there's a very lengthy shach. What if instead of basar b'chalav, it's kosher and non-kosher, right? You have Nebuch, you have a child who eats non-kosher, right? Because the reason why I say a child is because I'll explain in a moment, not every person that you're eating on the same table with is it a problem. You have to be very, very close to that person. So you have, by the way, forget Nebuch, a convert. He's eating with his parents. So he's Jewish, his parents are not. So they're perfectly allowed to eat chazer. If I'm eating at the same time as chazer, we're going to see it's not so pashut. It could be it's allowed. The reason being is because there's a fear. Jews don't put pork in their mouth. There's an automatic fear. So the whole concern that I might come to accidentally do it, I'm probably not going to do it because there's a natural fear. Milk and meat are kosher. They're not just kosher. I eat them all the time. So because they're so naturally go together, meaning in that they're permissible items, Chazal were super strict. And therefore they said, don't even have them at the table at the same time. Even though this is an example of Gzeira L'Gzeira, this is the exception. Okay. Now, question number one that I'd like to talk about is, would a shomer help? Would a shomer help? Meaning, I have on the table, again, there's no other people, it's just me. I have on the table, I'm eating alone, I have a slice of pizza, I have a burger. Because I'm gross, I didn't clean up my previous meal, it's still on the same table. So the Shulchan Aruch says it's a problem. Can I just say, hey, Arla happens to be in the other room, I say, Arla, do me a favor, you're my shomer, stop me from, you're my shomer. Right, we have a concept in halacha, right, you're not supposed to eat before davening Ma'ariv, but if you appoint a shomer, you could. Shomer sometimes help. So can a shomer prevent me, can we rely on a shomer, that he's going to stop me? The whole point is that I'm going to accidentally do it, I got a shomer with me. So it says Rabbi Kiveger, this is Rabbi Kiveger's commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. In Sifkat and Aleph, he has one line, he says, Asa lahalos ala shulchan, v'lo mahani lahamid etzlo shomer, sheyeshgiach alav. A shomer will not help. Okay? A shomer will not help. Now, it would seem to be this is the end of the story, but there's a Pischei Tshuva all the way at the end of the Siman. I say all the way, it's not that long, but on the next page. In Sifkat and Dalet, that I printed here, I want to read the Pischei Tshuva, and I don't think it's a machlokes necessarily. I think there's a way to explain it. I mean, it could be it's a machlokes, but I think there's a way to explain it. Sif Beis in the Mechaber is dealing with two people eating at the table at the same time. You have a husband and wife, she's having cereal, and you're having a burger, okay? That's also a problem, because the concern is, you're like, oh, you got to taste this, and then you hand it to her, and then she's eating basar b'challah, or vice versa. So the Mechaber deals with it. And the one way to fix it, as we'll talk about next time, is to put up a hecker, to put something on the table, tablecloths, or in yeshiva, right? I pull up the tablecloth, I'm eating directly on the table, you're eating on the tablecloth, or placemats. That's the concept of placemats in halacha. This is what it comes from. There's a Pischei Tshuva. If you look at the Pischei Tshuva in Sifkat and Dalet, he says, Ayin berhetiv, mashakasav, ach misha echel basar, v'uto soifer. Okay, fine, this is all just fine. One line in. Ayin b'tshuvas masas binyamin. The Tshuvas masas binyamin writes, be'emsa tshuva, the mashmasham, he writes, if you have a husband and wife at the table, she's eating a burger and he's eating pizza, so it's a problem unless you put like a hecker. It's an issue. Says the Masas Binyamin, if there's someone else at the table, it's fine. There'll be a shomer. If you get someone else on the table, there'll be a shomer. They'll stop you. Meaning, in order for this mistake to happen, you'd have to now do something that's against halacha in front of them. They'll probably stop you. So that's the Masas Binyamin says, having someone else around is even better than putting up a hecker. They're eating. No, they're sitting there. They're not partaking in the meal, but they're there. They're at the table. So they'll be able to stop you. So now, pause. I mean, we'll talk more about this in the next sif. This seems to be a machlokas, because this is probably working mitzad shomer. So the Mefarshim, there's two ways to look at it. You could just say it's a machlokas. I think the more accepted approach is that it's not a machlokas. There's a difference between one person and two people. When I'm eating alone, a shomer will not help. If a husband and wife are eating together, a shomer will. I'll tell you why. Think about what has to happen. When I'm eating alone, what has to happen for me to do an avera? I need me to make a mistake. That's one person. A shomer is not going to help, according to the Rav Kiveger. But in the second case of a husband and wife, what has to happen for the avera to take place? They're not bad people. They're not people that want to fight against Hashem. This is an honor from couple. What has to happen? He has to forget, and she has to forget, right? Because if one of them remembers, they'll stop each other. Two people plus a shomer, that's enough. So that would be the way to reconcile that it's not a machlokes. There's a difference between one person eating alone, where the shomer is just joining him, as opposed to two people eating together different foods. You already, to make a mistake, you would need both of them to have a lapse in judgment, plus the shomer. That would be enough. That would be explain the difference of whether a shomer would suffice. So the machlokes Masas Binyamin or Kiveger would be if you're one person or two people. So it could be it's not a machlokes at all. That seems to be the accepted approach. There are some mafarshim that just say it's a machlokes, but I think the accepted approach is this. Because you have the husband and wife, for them to, right? I'm eating a burger, she's eating fries from a milchik place. What's the concern? The concern is I'm like, oh, you got to try this burger. And I hand it to her. And in order for her to eat that, I have to forget halacha, she has to forget halacha. That's two. If there's a shomer at the table, then we rely on the shomer, because you're already starting with two people, plus the shomer. No. In the Masas Binyamin says, Im gam acherim ochlam al shulchan zeh. If there's other people eating at the table as well, meaning they're going to serve as a shomer. Right? That's how it's going to work. The other people being present is the mashkiach, basically. They're being the shomer. I'm not saying they were appointed. You're right. They're not appointed as a shomer. Their mere presence would work. It's working in this guise of a shmira.
In this case, they wouldn't hold the hecker.
Correct. What do you mean? So you're asking if one person is alone, would a hecker help?
No, two people.
Two people, a hecker would definitely help.
But in this case, though,
They don't need a hecker because the shomer would suffice.
But I would say reverse.
No, a hecker definitely. When you have two people, a hecker definitely helps. That's in Mefurish and Shulchan Aruch. His point is you don't need a hecker as long as you have a shomer there. That's enough. So it seems to be a machlokes whether a shomer helps, and the answer is it's not a machlokes at all. It seems to be talking about different cases. Yeah. Okay, let's go weiter. Now let's begin a very very long shach. We'll go through it inside. The shach, I want to just run through it because if I can go through the whole shach from beginning to end and explain it, I'd like to do this. Again, the mechaber is saying there's an issue with one person having on the table, or even two people having on the table, milk and meat together, because the concern is, I come to eat from you, you come to eat from me, or if I'm alone, I'll come to eat it accidentally. Here's the question. The question is, what happens if instead of milk and meat, it's kosher and non-kosher? And I told you, how could this be? What's the case? So let me give you one more piece of information that's going to be very relevant next week. I'll just spoil it. This is from the Shulchan Aruch. We'll do next week. Actually, maybe the end of today. The issue of two people eating at the table milk and meat only applies if they're very, very close to each other. Because again, what's the concern? The concern is you'll come to eat off my table, my food, and I'm going to come to eat off your food. We have to be very, very close. If you're, acquaintances, you're not eating my food, I'm not eating your food. So you have to be makirim zeh. You have to be very close. So I'm going to, from now on, pick the example of husband and wife, brothers, siblings. You understand? They have to be very, very close. Okay. So the Shach writes like this. The Nira, says the Shach, I believe the whole issue of milk and meat on the table at the same time is dafka, basar, aser, lahalis, ala shulchan, sha'echel chalav. It's dafka meat. The issue is meat at the same time as milk. So I'm having a burger, you're having a slice of pizza. That's a problem because the concern is I'll offer it to you, you'll offer it to me. But says the Shach, Mishum, why is the Basar B'chalav is a concern? Mishum deloy bedili inshimine, because there's no fear. There's no fear by Basar B'chalav because they're both permissible. Because each one is permissible on its own. So because each one is permissible on its own, the concern is I'll come to eat yours, you'll come to eat me, and the reason why it's a possibility is because I eat milk separately and I eat meat separately. There's no concern. But says the Shach, kosher and non-kosher, that's fine. So I'll give you an example. You have someone who converts. So a convert is eating on the same table as his parents who are not Jewish. He's having kosher food, the non-Jew is having non-kosher food, that's fine. Why aren't we concerned that you'll come to eat from each other? Because Jews don't naturally put non-kosher in their mouth. So because there's a natural fear with non-kosher, McDonald's I don't put in my mouth, that natural fear is enough to stop me. That's the Shach writes. Okay. Correct, but a Jew knows. No, a Yid knows. You're right, maybe from an onlooker, maybe not, but I know that's non-kosher, so I'm not going to put it into my mouth. Now what we're going to do is going to run through the Shach, Rayas, Kashas, Terutzim, but that is the side of the Shach. Kosher and non-kosher is fine. And again, it has to be a case where they're very close to each other, because if they're not close to each other, it's b'chlal muter. It has to be they're very close to each other. Why would someone who you're very close to be eating non-kosher? Either they're not religious or they're not Jewish. And that's also clear from the Ran of the Beis Yosef. Okay, good. It's a chiddush of the Shach. Miu mimashakasav harash bepirush l'nedarim gaber hanuder hamnami chavero ochim ala shulchan v'lo chashinan shema yochel imo. Let me say this outside and we'll see it inside. Basically, the kasha is like this. The Rosh writes that if me and Richie, I'll pick Richie as an example because this would be ridiculous. I would never do this. But let's say we got into a fight and I make a neder. I say, I swear I'm not eating your food. The halacha is we could eat at the table at the same time. Why? So pause. Why should it be okay? So according to the Shach, I'll tell you why it's okay. Because a neder is chazer. So the reason why it's mutter should be because it's chazer, right? You told me non-kosher is fine. It's only a problem if it's milk and meat. Non-kosher is fine. When I make a neder on his food is now chazer to me. But that's not what the Rosh says. The Rosh says the reason why it's mutter is because I told you it's only a problem if people are very close to each other. Says the Rosh, statistically, when you make a neder against eating someone, you're really not that close anymore. So the Rosh says the reason why it's mutter is because of a default. How close could you be from that person if you're making a neder not to eat his food? But says the Shach, I don't understand. Forget about that reason. You should say it's mutter because it's chazer. Even if you're super close, it should be mutter. I thought chazer, and it's not actual chazer. It's a kosher chicken, but I made it chazer by making a neder.
But by eating together, that doesn't negate that?
No, I could eat sometimes with people I hate. I do it
All the time.
So it says the Shach, Miu mashkas of a rosh b'pushul nedarim. The Mishnah says, Hanudar hamechavero ochim ala shulchan. You're allowed to eat at the table at the same time with someone that you asered his food from you. But question is, why isn't it a problem? Says the Rosh, and we're not concerned that you'll come to eat with him. Why? Because because if you made a neder against him, you probably don't like him that much. But says the Shach, I don't understand, forget about that reason. I thought non-kosher is allowed. And when you make a neder, it becomes non-kosher. So the answer is, I think this is what Adam, I know Adam well enough, it's not actually non-kosher. Yeah, exactly. The reason why you're allowed to have non-kosher at the table with kosher is because a Jew has a natural fear to McDonald's. They have a natural fear of pork. This case, while it might be halachically like pork, it's a kosher slice of pizza from Benji's that Richie has. I made a neder that he's not allowed to eat it. So for me, it's like chazer, but it's not actual chazer. That fear doesn't kick in anymore. That's why you need the heter of the fact that they hate each other. The point is, you're right, when you make a neder against eating someone's food, while it might be halachically like chazer, it's not chazer when it comes to fear. There's no fear. I would put it in my mouth naturally, I wouldn't have a concern about it. So what's the heter? Says the Rosh. It must be the heter because we hate each other. Says the Shach, the kiven shadim umeviu beis Yosef mashma dafil b'sharisum nami din hachi v'yesh loimer din nedarim kiven sheini asel mitzad nidro chashiv kabasa b'chalav shekol heter kol echad heter b'fnei atzmai. In both cases, it's actually mutter. I made it in neder, but there's no natural fear. Aval b'shar isurim yesh loimer demayda harash. But when it comes to all isurim, it's mutter to have at the table at the same time. There's a natural fear with lobster. A Jew doesn't put lobster in his mouth. He says. V'hada kasav Rashba Maviu Beis Yosef the oivik chav ma'ba'im chemtza lebeis Yisrael asel lahaloisim ala shulchan upasa kach b'shulchan aruch shem. So here's the question: the Shulchan Aruch says that on Pesach, if you have a non-Jewish cleaning woman and she's eating at your table chametz, you can't eat at the same time as her. Wait a minute, Jews don't put chametz in the mouth. Like chametz has got to be a fear. So I thought it's mutter. I thought kosher, non-kosher is allowed. Chametz. So why is it that it's a problem to have it at the,
Also viewers, like it was kosher before.
So the Gemara said he's going to say it's a little different. Chametz, it's not that we're concerned you'll actually put it in your mouth. Chametz is so severe, we're afraid a crumb will just fly into your food. Meaning, it's not. Chametz is so severe, even a mashahu is a problem. You can't eat it at the same time. Chametz is its own rules. Says the Shach. Chametz is too severe, it's different. Over there we're afraid the guy is eating and he speaks and then a little bit of a piece of the chicken flake, cornflakes falls into my, we can't eat at the table at the same time. I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you, by the way. You know that we said before you're allowed to eat at the same time milk and meat as long as you put like something on the table, like a tablecloth. We'll get to it. Yeah. Chametz, you can't. Chametz, a tablecloth doesn't help. Why? The answer is because chametz is a different world. We're not concerned about you putting it in your mouth. We're concerned about a piece of the bread flying into your salad. So it's a different... But the Orchos Chaim seems to not hold this way. Why? Shekasav sham imroitza v'cham le'echol chametz bebeis Yisrael muter v'afil al shulchan Yisrael karav adav lahater zemetz v'zechametz domya d'shnei achsanoyim. I'll tell you, he says, here's my issue. Again, the Shach's rule is you're allowed to have kosher and non-kosher at the table at the same time because there's a natural fear. You know what the Orchos Chaim writes? The Orchos Chaim writes, he holds you could eat at the table at the same time chametz and non-chametz. On Pesach, you could have chametz and non-chametz. The Orchos Chaim says it's allowed, not like what we said before. The Orchos Chaim says it's allowed. Why? Because he says, who's eating chametz? A guy? How close are you to a guy? You're not going to eat off his plate. The question is why? I don't understand. it should be mutter to eat chametz. That you're a guy, you want to eat chametz on my table on Pesach. It should be mutter because this rule does not apply to isurim because there's a natural fear, and chametz there's a natural fear. But what does Archas Chaim say? It's allowed. I agree with you. It's allowed because you're not close to a guy. You're going to eat off his table. You're not going to eat off his table. The question is, forget about that reason. I thought that there's a natural fear by isurim. Again, they're both saying the same conclusion, is that it's allowed, but they're giving a different reason. The Shach would tell you it's allowed because kosher and non-kosher is not a problem. There's a natural fear. But the Archas Chaim is saying it's mutter because how close are you to a guy? You're not going to eat off his plate, implying if you are taka close to that guy, then it would be a problem. But I thought there's a natural fear. So says the Shach the following, and this is his conclusion. I'll say it outside and then we'll see it inside. The Shach says, when it comes to kosher and non-kosher, it's fine. There's a natural fear. Except for one type of non-kosher. Al halechem yichya ha'adam. Bread. Bread, the teva of people, Hashem made people that they need two things to survive, bread and water. And because people need bread to survive, there's a natural drawing bringing you to bread. And therefore, even though chametz is an isser, so if on the table, according to the Shach, conclusive halacha, I'm eating kosher, you're eating lobster, that's fine. I would never put lobster in my mouth. I'm eating kosher, you're eating the bread from Red Lobster, that's a problem. Even though it's also isser, bread, Jews, everyone just naturally are drawn to bread. So it says the Shach, so Nirin v'chein mashmos kol poisim shel kosv v'zeh legabi basar b'chal v'gam nirli the Archas Chaim model lezeh shani hasam ala lechem yichya ha'adam v'rogul boy kol hashana v'loy b'dilin ishminei. People always eat bread. Bread is, you're naturally drawn to bread, and therefore bread there's no fear. And the Shach ends off the last line, l'fizeh asa lahalis lechem shel iser ala shulchan. So that would mean, if you have someone who goes to Red Lobster and gets lobster and all these things, no problem. But the second they put the bread on the table, now we have an issue. Because the bread of Isurim, there is a concern. That's the conclusion of the Shach. So according to the Shach, just to summarize, Basar b'chalav is a problem to eat at the table at the same time, unless you do a hecker, unless, as we'll do in a moment, what to do. Non-kosher and kosher is fine, except for bread. Okay.
It's okay for like a business lunch. You get kosher food brought in.
Correct. That would be okay, except for the bread. If there's bread on the table, then we have a problem. So if you're going to a non-kosher restaurant for a business meeting, what happens is, how close are you to guy? I mean, you're not going to eat off the table anyway, but you're close to them. Let's say you're so close to them, you eat off the table, and you shouldn't be that close to someone who's not Jewish. I don't know, but unless you're related to them. But okay, then if you're very close to them, it would be a problem if there's bread on the table. Okay. What I wanted, yeah?
I'm saying that's also why you have to get rid of the chametz on Pesach, because you might go ahead and eat.
Yeah, well, chametz also. But his point is that it's not just chametz. It's all non-kosher bread. Most non-kosher bread is chametz, but his point is that bread is a natural... okay. No, a hecker will help you. A hecker will help you. No, a hecker will help. No, a hecker will help. He's just saying that without a hecker, it's an issue. On bread. Huh?
Is it non-kosher food a hecker?
No. So let's do what we'll do is we'll do the mechaber and sif beis, and I'll do one quick halacha, and then we'll stop. We'll do the entire mechaber, but we'll have to review it. So again, sif aleph, the mechaber just lays out the concept that milk and meat at the table at the same time is an issue. Now the mechaber in sif aleph was talking about one person eating alone. I'm eating alone at the table. There's a burger and there's a pizza. That's an issue. Now sif beis, the mechaber is going to deal with a much more practical application: is two people eating at the table at the same time, husband and wife, siblings, best friends. They're eating at the table at the same time. That's when the issues come in. So it says the mechaber in sif beis, this issue of eating at the table at the same time, which people does it apply to? Again, the concern is I'm going to come off to eat. I'm just going to eat off your plate without really thinking. So it says the mechaber, it's dafka b'shnei b'nei adam hamakirim zeh. It has to be two people who are very, very close. Afilu he makpidim zeh, even if they're currently fighting. Now pause. If they're very close, but they're fighting, so it should be okay. Right? Me and Richie, best friends. We would normally eat off each other's plate. But this time, he's gone too far. And now we can't stand each other. But we're still eating together. So then the Mechaber says it's a problem. So why? It's very simple. The Mefarshim speak out because the average person doesn't know that we're in a fight. They just see me and Richie eating together. They see him eating a burger, me eating pizza, without anything on the table. And they're going to say, oh, I guess it's allowed. It's marasayin, meaning They know we're very close. They don't happen to know that we're fighting right now. No, because there's not morons. No, there's not morons. No, they see two best friends eating together, not realizing that this is a circumstance that people don't know. It's not the same. It's not ignorance of halacha. This is an ignorance of they don't know that we happen to be fighting. We didn't live tweet it yet. But the point is, so it happens to be, it's a problem if they're very, very close, even if they happen to be fighting. Okay, we'll get it. Then let's just run through the mechaber. Aval achsanoyim is basically, you're at a bed and breakfast. You're at a communal table. You don't know the people. Achsanoyim, they're all guests. She'ein makirim zeh mutter, then it's mutter, because I'm not going to eat off your plate, you're not going to eat off my plate. Then the mechaber says, "Va'afilu hamakirim." But let's say you're two best friends. So we said best friends is a problem. Me and Richie is a problem. So how do we fix it? Says the mechaber, "Im asu shum heker." You have to put a heker. What's a heker? Put something at the table that's not normally there. This is the example of placemats. That's the modern application is placemats. But in the times of the mechaber, put something at the table that's not really there normally, and that would remind you. You'll be like, "Oh, why is that? Why is the tissue box on the table? It's never on the kitchen table." The answer is, I got to make sure not to eat your food. You got to make sure not to eat my food. It says the mechaber, each person has their own tablecloth, their own placemat. Or we're both eating on the same tablecloth, but they put the bread on the table. Apparently bread was never on the table. It was always in the kitchen, and we brought the bread specifically to the table. Again, obviously it's a circumstance where the bread is not normally on the table. Says the Ramah, obviously, it also has to be you're not eating the bread, because if you're eating the bread, then it's normal, it's on the table. It has to be you're not eating this bread, you're bringing a giant loaf to the table, no one's eating bread. The answer is it's there as a sign. Says the Ramah, obviously, if you're eating the bread, it's no longer a heker. Why? Because then it's supposed to be at the table. Then the Ramah continues. If let's say you put a bottle of orange juice on the table, even though you're both drinking orange juice, but the bottle's never there, that's enough. It has to just do with, is the item normally there? Will it remind you? Then the Ramah continues. The kol shekain im nasu sham menorah. If you take the menorah, you take the candelabra, put it on the table, it's not normally there. Now the Ramah, I'll just mention this because I just want to finish this, and then we'll do one quick halacha. The Ramah says, one other thing, and this is negeh for the Stanleys. You take a sip when you're eating a burger. This is a stam. You're eating a burger, your mouth is full of grease. You take a sip. And you spill in front of 30 people. Then you eat a slice of pizza, grease on your mouth, and you take a sip. Now on this straw, there's schmutz from milchik and fleishik. So just be careful, don't do that. Meaning, in other words, don't use the same cup for milchik and fleishik unless you wash your mouth. Or wash the cup. Who does that? So anyway, so the point is, make sure that there's no schmutz, pashut, no schmutz. Then the Ramah says one more halacha. Also, you can't eat from one bread. We'll talk about this next time. If you have a bread that you put on the table for fleishik, and then you slice it up, and then you have some extra slices, then you want to make a French toast on Sunday, that's a problem. Because the bread is full of schmutz of meat, because it was on the meat table with the steak, and then you're putting it, again, we're considered schmutz. We'll talk about this next time. They would have two salt shakers, but not because of what we're doing nowadays. If people have salt shakers, it's a chumrah shebachumrah. We'll talk about next time why this is. It's steam. This was a salt dish. If you ever seen chassidim, like Rebbes, they dip it into the salt. So the problem was they would have one salt dish, they would take the chicken, dip it in, and now there's schmutz of chicken. Then they would take cheese and dip it in. It's mamash bas b'chal. So that back then, the requirement of having two different salt dishes was a real requirement. It wasn't like a salt shaker. We'll talk next time about, is there a need to have two salt shakers? Is it a chumrah? Is it necessary? This is talking about mamash a salt dish. Okay, one quick halacha and then we'll stop. The Shulchan Aruch said that it's a problem when you have two people that are best friends, even though they're currently fighting. Why? I told you why, because the reason is because people don't know that they're fighting. But really, forget about if that reason didn't exist, like if there was no one around, or if it wasn't a real marasayan issue, it's really fine, because when two people are best friends but they're fighting, I'm not eating off your plate and you're not eating off my plate. But says the mechaber, two people that are best friends that are fighting are a problem because people are seeing them. Let me say it outside, we'll see it inside. The Taz brings down that the Mashal disagrees. The Mashal is very interesting. The Mashal didn't believe in this concern of what it looks like. The Mashal didn't believe in that. This is what the Mashal feels in. The Mashal says, is there a concern that they're going to eat off each other's plate? So it says the Mashal the following. It's very interesting. The Mashal says, best friends that are fighting, I'm not going to eat off your plate. Even though we're best friends, but we're fighting. It says the Mashal, there's only one relationship where even when you're fighting, you'll still eat off each other's plate, and that's family. That's what the Mashal says. He says, the Mashal says, you can have two brothers that hate each other, but they'll eat off each other's plate. So it says the Mashal, so according to the Mashal, if two family members are fighting, it's a problem. Two friends are fighting, it's fine. Because again, the Mechaber feels it's always a problem between best friends and family because the Mechaber is not getting into the concern of are people going to practically eat off each other's plate. That's not the problem. It's what does it look like? You have two best friends that are fighting. Are they going to eat off each other's plate? No. But says the Mechaber, it's still a problem because people don't know that we're fighting. The Marshal says, I don't believe in that. The Marshal says, let me get into your mindset. Are you going to eat off each other's plate? If yes, it's a problem. If no, then it's fine. Says the Marshal, the only relationship where you could be fighting and still be close enough to eat off each other's plate is family, which is an interesting perspective. And it's kachava, that you could have family and then mamish, like you're in the middle of a fight, they'll sit down together over a meal. Let's just read it inside. The Taz says like this, Marshal, Perakol Abasim Mem Gimel Kasav Azeh, V'loy Nehira. Says the Marshal, I don't understand. Why are two best friends that are fighting? What's the problem? Da Isa b'Gemara, Amalei Rav Yemer LaAbaya, Achinu Machpidin says Emahu. The Gemara, when it talks about people that are fighting, it doesn't say friends. It says brothers, Achin. So the Machaber, so the Shulchan Aruch says, yeah, okay, brothers, friends, it's all the same. Because again, from the Machaber's perspective, he's not trying to get into the mindset of, are you going to actually eat off each other's plate? It's what does it look like? So brothers and friends are the same. The Mashal says, no. The Gemara specifically said brothers. Why? Because brothers are the only relationship that they can hate each other and still they eat off each other's plate. So it says in Mechaber, the Gemara never asks about friends, it asks about brothers. Shmami, no? Dafka achin, shemakpidin. Aval b'shar b'nei adam ein shayich makirin makpidin. Says the Marshal, it's not possible to have this relationship by anyone other than blood. Only blood could you love and hate at the same time. Friends, it doesn't work like that. You're either best friends or you're no longer best friends. That's it. So therefore, and if you're fighting, you're not best friends anymore. So the Marshal would tell you that if you have me and Richie are fighting, it's fine because we're not best friends anymore. The Mechaber would say, you're still best friends, you're fighting, you're not going to eat off each other's plate, but it looks bad. The Marshal says, no, I don't care about looks, I care about practically. Best friends that are fighting are not best friends, and it's mutter. Brothers that are fighting is a problem. So everyone agrees brothers are fighting is a problem. The shaila is friends that are fighting. The Mashal says it's mutter. The Mechaber would say it's a problem. He says, "The lashon makira mashma oivin zeh b'lei hakpada." Because of mayu makirin zeh oibnei abeiz achim afilu makbidin zeh aser. L'fidim Mashal b'shnei b'nei adam. According to Mashal, if you have two best friends, hakara b'lei ahava alad makbidin, and they're currently fighting mutarim, it's mutter because. If they're best friends that are fighting, they're not best friends. But says the Taz, v'lei nir l'neas daiti. But I disagree because the Taz is defending the Mechaber. Best friends that are fighting are a problem. The Mashal's making a good point. Best friends that are fighting are not going to eat off each other's plates. It says the Taz. It's still a problem. It's loy plug. Because everyone who's watching, they're going to say, kasarikin, meaning everyone's watching is going to say, I guess it's fine. In other words, maris ayin. And therefore, that would apply to best friends that are fighting as well. So just to conclude this, the Mechaber feels that two best friends that are fighting are a problem because the onlookers don't know that we're fighting. The Marshal says, no, two best friends that are fighting are fine because they're not going to eat off each other's plate. The only time it's a problem, says the Marshal, is two brothers that are fighting because brothers can love each other and hate each other at the same time. All right, we'll stop here.